A very good evening to you. Welcome to the West Ham Weekly on the West Ham Voice on a Monday night. I hope you've had a reasonably good weekend. I know it's been a little bit flat given the defeat against Brentford, our nemesis, in the Premier League at the weekend. After that really decent win against Arsenal in the League Cup on Wednesday, you would have imagined that would have been right up for the Brentford game. And I guess we were for the first half an hour or so. We actually looked pretty decent. And then tactically, we lost it in the second half. We got outmaneuvered, outthought, and it ended up with another defeat. And it's a real shame, to be quite honest with you, because I really thought that after the first half performance, we were under the cosh near the end of the first half. But after the first half performance, I thought we were going to win the game, or at the very, very least, I thought we were going to walk away from the G-Tech with a draw. But it wasn't to be. Look, I'm not going to go into the detail of the game because I did two videos. I did one straight after the game on Saturday, and then I did another one on Sunday morning. So if you want to sort of look at any detail, you can go and have a look at those. But what I'm going to talk about is David Moyes, because the two videos that I've done over the weekend were out of real frustration. Look, due to the decent start of the season, I guess the club, at the beginning of the season, we were still riding on the crest of a wave, weren't we? With a trophy win at the end of last season and so on and so forth. And the Moyes out noise was kind of stifled. But after a brief run of poor performances and the defeats in the league, one in Europe as well, the Moyes out noise has started to gain momentum again. And I can understand why. For some reason, despite the successes of last season, the Moyes out noise has never really gone away, to be quite honest with you. There are some sections of the fan base, no matter, that would say no matter what's happened with our cup wins, etc., and over the last 3 or 4 seasons, for them, it's always been Moyes out and always will be. So where am I in all this? And why does it feel that I feel that I'm flip-flopping between Moyes in, Moyes out, Moyes indifferent, etc.? Look, football's an emotive sport. And there are times when fans react to what happens because of that emotion. It can be more difficult to be rational sometimes than it can to be, than control your emotions, especially when we lose, and we lose in the manner that we do, especially after the game against Brentford. Like I say, the post-match video I did on Saturday straight after the game was very much emotion-led. I was kind of frustrated that I was walking out of that stadium without even a point. And then, like I said, I tried to do a follow-up video where I was trying to be rational on Sunday morning. But again, because of the nature of how we lost, it was still pretty evident that I was a bit upset by normally being like this. Normally, last season was a lot worse. We went through an awful lot worse. But for some reason, I was quite all right about it. I was kind of like, we'll get through it. I guess maybe because this season we've started off so well and we kind of fallen away pretty quickly. It was disappointing to sort of come away from that game with nothing. Look, the themes running through both videos veer towards the thinking that perhaps now is the time that David Moyes should be relieved of his duties at West Ham United. But how likely is that to happen? I'm still uncertain whether the board will pull the trigger. Well, they're certainly not going to pull the trigger just yet. And I know people are talking about, 5 games, 6 games in a row if he loses and all that sort of stuff. But I don't think that's going to happen. There's plenty of football left to play in this season. And I don't think we're going to see a change in the coming weeks. But when it comes to closer to the January transfer window, I think we've got a different scenario. And I talked a lot about this in my show last week as well, and a couple of shows I did last week, because I suggested and I maintain that David Moyes' status as manager of West Ham United may not only be about results. So, for example, if David Moyes goes and wins the next 3, 4, 5 games in a row, it doesn't necessarily mean his future is safe, because as I said before, it's also what's down to his sort of relationship with Tim Steidten. look, I'm repeating old ground. Tim Steidten, from what we understand, is now David Sullivan's confirmed number 2. Tim Steiden's going to have an awful lot of say in the January transfer window. And if David Moyes keeps saying to Tim, no, mate, I don't want that player. I don't want this striker. I'm not interested in this player, etc., etc. That could be where David Moyes then is told enough is enough. So it's not just about results, but the results do matter and the performances do matter. We've now dropped to 11th in the league. The chances of being dragged into a relegation dogfight, I'll be really honest with you, are quite remote. There really are 3 really poor teams in the Premier League. In fact, there are probably 4 or 5 really poor teams in the Premier League. And when you look at the likes of Sunderland, Burnley, Bournemouth, Luton, they're going to have to go some in order to get themselves out of the relegation dogmire. It can happen. Luton beating Liverpool at the weekend, certainly suggests that they're not all lying ducks. But, I can't see West Ham United getting into a relegation dogfight. But never say never. Then we have the cup competitions, of course. We've got, despite the poor performance against Olympiacos, we've still got Freiburg and Olympiacos to come at home. And we've got probably the easiest team to play away, which is TSC Baka Topola. So one would argue that we should be getting through that group and we should be winning that as well. And then, of course, we've got the League Cup. And the performance, all right, we've been given a really hard task against Liverpool in the next leg. But what if we win that? Surely, with Chelsea playing Newcastle, you've got to say to yourself, well, why not go all the way if we manage to get past Liverpool as well? I think that's sort of all of that happening, all of that coming out. I think you could argue that we've still got an awful lot to play for. But I think the argument is David Moyes the right person to take us through? Look, for me, I think the real nub of everything is what David Moyes does with team selections and what David Moyes does with substitutions. We know, it's like the witching hour, isn't it? Come the 60th minute, 65 minute, 70th minute, Moyes will make a change. Come that time, Moyes will always make the same changes. He'll always bring Ings on. He'll always bring probably Fornals on and players like that. When you sort of look and see, well, what's going on here? We've got players on the bench that could probably make a difference in a different way. Sometimes when we're lacking a bit of creativity or when we're lacking a bit of pace, you've got to be looking at the bench and going, well, who's going to give us a bit of pace on the bench? It ain't going to be Danny Ings, is it? And if you want someone that's going to try and run around and try and get that ball, etc., if Antonio's not doing it, then why not a young lad like a Mubama? And then if you're going to look at then why not players like Cornet, etc.? But every time, I think what's frustrating fans is the team selection is usually the same. Look, to be honest, when it came to the team selection against Brentford at the weekend, one can argue that Moyes' hand was sort of forced because we had Paquetá and we had Alvarez on suspensions. So he was kind of forced to have to play Antonio. But he could have gone a different way. He could have gone with, say, I don't know, Fornals in the middle. Instead of playing him out wide all the time. He could have gone for maybe Cornet to give us a bit of pace. He could play out wide as well. But it's the same old, which I think frustrates fans. And when I was thinking about this, to me, I was thinking, what can David Moyes do, to try and win the fan base round? And it's quite simple. All right, we're all armchair managers, and we all say we don't see what happens on the training pitch, etc. But one has got to say, if you're picking a player like, I don't know, Cornet to sit on the bench and Mumbama to sit on the bench, then they're fit enough to be able to play at least 10, 15 minutes in a game, aren't they? Look, for me, when I look at the squad, I start thinking to myself, is the squad good enough? I kind of questioned that at the beginning of the season. I said to myself, well, I said to you lot, this squad is good enough. We've got enough players there to have a really good season. Then when you start looking at what's going on, you have to ask yourself, is it actually good enough to get through a season in Europe, in the Premier League, in cup competitions, and so on and so forth? You may argue we've got at least 18 players, give or take, 19, 20 players. I know the squad is bigger, but we've got about 18 players that should be doing decent under any manager. and many would argue would be doing even better under a different manager to David Moyes. But when I look at our squad, and if I was to be really harsh, I'd argue that we've probably got around 10 really good players and another half a dozen that have got the potential to be good, but sometimes they're lacking in quality and so on. And that may be the way they're being trained. That may be the way, sort of not being given an opportunity to come off the bench and prove something instead of coming on in the last 10 minutes and so. And then you've got about half a dozen players that you could really argue maybe it was time for them to go. Now, I'm not going to tell you which 10 players I think, because we've all got different opinions. But I will tell you the half a dozen players that I think perhaps we should have moved on in the summer. Again, you may not necessarily agree. Angelo Ogbonna, fantastic defender for West Ham United, but maybe a season or two too many. We've got Ben Johnson, who really has just lost form over the last couple of years completely. Aaron Creswell should have been moved in the summer. Many of you would argue Fabianski should still be number one, but for me, maybe we should have brought in another goalie to really compete with Areola. With many are saying Areola has been at fault for some goals over the season, but look how great he played at the beginning of the season. Mikel Antonio, I've been saying for a couple of years that perhaps Mikel Antonio should have moved on, but yet what do? We've gone completely the reverse, and we've given him an extended contract. Danny Ings should have moved on, and Connor Coventry, who's never really going to see any game time in any competition at any time this season, should have been allowed to leave as well, and maybe Flynn Down should have stayed on. Now, I could have added other players in that list. Some of you would argue Fornals should be a player that should have gone. Cornet, Benrahma, Kehrer, Soucek. But I think those players still have an awful lot to offer in different ways. And if not under Moyes, then perhaps under a different manager. So with the squad that we have, why does Moyes keep insisting on making the same team selections over and over again? And why does he insist on using the same subs over and over again, with the likes of Pablo Fornals continuously being asked to play in a position that he's never going to get used to playing left of midfield? It's not his position, never has been, and never will be. The minute he leaves West Ham United, I doubt very much any future manager of his is going to say, Pablo, out on the left, mate, because that's not going to happen. So Fornals is a prime example of maybe under a different manager, he could be, utilized better and maybe give different performances than he has done so far. Look, his focus has gone. I know people said, I made a comment about Fornals, his focus has gone, because of what's been happening. And people said he's a professional, he should come out and play the game anyway. And yeah, that's a good point. But if you ask Pablo Fornals to play in the middle and he starts playing more regularly in the middle, then perhaps you might see the old Pablo Fornals coming back to the fore. And that's one of the things that people get frustrated at with David Moyes. Players being used in positions that are not suited to them. Square pegs in round holes. We've been hearing that for the last 4 years that David Moyes has been with us at West Ham. And the bleeding obvious when it comes to the timing of substitutions as well. He'll make the substitutions at the same time. He doesn't make substitutions to affect the game. It's almost like, the hours come up, let's make a change. I think it was against Olympiacos the week before last, when I thought he was going to make changes at halftime. He didn't do it. So he's not affecting the game by making changes. Surely he must be seeing what we're seeing, that things aren't working well at a certain time. So make changes. That's another thing that he could maybe win fans back over. Not only using players in their rightful positions, but using other players in addition to just the traditional Danny Ings and Pablo Fornals coming on. Making substitutions at different times in the game in order to affect the game is something that could maybe win back a bit of the fan base. And then when it comes to, I've already said, pace up front, finding it difficult to break teams down, that's when he should start thinking about, shall I bring on the young lad? Shall I bring on Mbama and get him to sort of run around, and have an impact up front, and also Maxwell Cornet. These players have got a bit of pace. They're going to have something about them, and they're going to offer something a little bit different to what we have. And yet David Moyes does the same old, same old. Now, I don't know if you noticed at the weekend, by the way, something happened, something different happened. David Moyes actually went for a 4-4-2, or at best a 4-4-1-1 formation, where Antonio, back in the lineup, was had in the first half, certainly Bowen just behind him, with Kudish out on the right and Ben Rama out on the left. And it kind of worked, so he can do it if he wants to. But then, of course, in the second half, he kind of went back to type. He reverted to type, and he sort of he had Antonio playing deeper, which wasn't working until he changed him. Why not give a player like Divin Mbama an opportunity? How much worse can Divin Mbama be to Danny Ings? Poor old Danny Ings. I feel sorry for him. I feel sorry for a player that keeps being put out there to perform when they are no longer capable of giving the performances that we need in the Premier League. So surely, Mbama can't be much worse coming on for 20 minutes, half an hour, 15 minutes, whatever it may be, to demonstrate what he might be capable of. These little things are the sorts of things that could potentially win some of the fan base back for David Moyes, making different substitutions, being brave, when the game's not going for you, and putting players on, not just on the 60th minute or the 70th minute or whatever it may be, making changes at halftime, making changes just before halftime, making changes just after halftime, whatever it may be, to have an effect on the game. Those little things, those little tactics, the way you use the squad, extending the substitution base and using other players rather than using the same players over and over again could work and could perhaps potentially win back some of the fan base for David Moyes. But for a lot of you, I get it and understand it. And I'm frustrated as well. I am, I'm not quite... I'm close to the Moyes. I'm being Moyes out, but because there's so much left to play for this season, I'm Moyes indifferent. I'll support the team, and whilst Moyes is there, hope he does the different. But I guess it's, we know what he's like. We know he doesn't. He doesn't change. And it's too late for him. People say it's too late for him to change. It's too late for him to try something different. He just won't do it, and it's a shame. Because those little tweaks, the way he uses his substitutions, the way he goes about all his business, could easily win him a bit of kudos. Not the player, but the mindset. Let's say hello to you, because I did a rant for 18 minutes and I haven't even said hello to everyone. Good evening to you, Ian. What do they need? A cleaner? Good evening, Daniel. I hope you're well. He can win me back by letting me drive him to Scotland. I'll even do it for nothing. Razor, good evening to you. Empty the bins, the guys, and good evening to you, Razor. Good evening, Foxes. I hope you're well. He will just see out his contract till the end of the season, which I don't know. I don't know. From my understanding and from what I was told last week as well as today, by one Mr. SW, it may not just be about results. It is a lot to do with what David Moyes is going to do with Tim Steiden, how closely he's going to work with him when the January transfer window is looming. Because if he keeps saying no, he will be on his bike sooner than seeing the end of his contract. Gavin, good evening to you. Need to start winning Premier League games because I'm smelling a fruitless, long, hard season. I get it. I mean, this, like I said, there is still a lot to play for, but we can't keep sliding down. I don't think we're going to get in no, I'm certain we won't get in a relegation battle, but it will be a lackluster season if we just carry on the way we do and finish sort of below mid-table. We get knocked out of all cup competitions as well. Won't be great. Foxes, I can understand parking the bus on occasion, but at this level, my nerves are starting to fray. Good evening, Mikey. I hope you're well. That ship has sailed long ago. Sooner he's gone, the better. Me personally, I think he will be given right until the Liverpool game on the 20th of December, then get sacked when we get knocked out. That's interesting. But like I said, it's not just about results, but that's a good point. Liverpool could be, I mean, let's not forget we've got Olympiacos to come. I'm going to talk about Olympiacos later on in the show, but we've got the Europa League. We've got to get through that. We've made it very, very difficult for ourselves as well, but we've got to get through that, and that might be just a bit of a respite for him. But it's not just about results. Let's scroll down and say hello to people I haven't said hello to yet. Usual, by not getting rid of it, I dread to think what's coming our way. Mark, good evening to you. I hear Sullivan wants Moyes to become entertainment. Good evening, Hammerette. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Good evening, Keith. Kalispera to you. I hope you're well, mate. Thanks for joining. John, good evening to you. Get rid now before we go too far down the table. We've got a good team now, and he can take Danny Ince with him. Yeah, Danny. I mean, from my understanding, I mean, I showed you a list of some of the players I thought should have gone in the summer. But in all fairness, we did try to get rid of one or two. Ben Johnson, there were no takers for. Cresswell, we know about Wolves, who didn't come in with a proper bid. Antonio was the only one that was shouting from the rafters that he wanted to leave, and yet we gave him a new effing contract. Danny Ings, unfortunately, no one was going to look at taking him either. And there were others. Cornet, apparently one or two teams looked at his injury record and went, no thanks. So, yeah, there were one or two that we did try to move on. Good evening to you, Clive. I hope you're well. Never fear, you're here. Good evening, Rani. I hope you're well. Drew, Duke, how are you? Haven't seen you for a while. Carnage waits for no man. I hope you're well, mate. Thanks for joining. Kent, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Moyes out. Let Tim get a new manager and move the project on quicker with new manager and not waste the whole season. Good point. It's a good point. Rani, yeah, I'm watching Marked Out. We'll ever see another game like Chelsea Spurs. Are you watching? What's the score there? Bill, good evening to you. Let's hope Stoll can put his spin on this madness. How have I done, mate? That was my spin. It wasn't even a spin. It's like genuine. I actually do think that if he just, stopped being so bloody stubborn, he could actually turn it around for himself, But maybe he just doesn't care. Maybe he doesn't give a damn what people think of him and his team selections and his substitutions, etc. He does it his way. He's the Frank Sinatra of the Premier League. He did it his way. But, maybe that's what it is. Maybe he just doesn't care what people think. But if he doesn't, then he's going to go about and work his way out of a job, isn't he? Good evening, hand traitors. My wife's so ugly when she walks past the platypus enclosure. Thank you for the joke so early in the evening. Who else have we got? Everyone's talking about the game. Just tell me what the score is. I'm only 20 minutes behind the chat already. Good evening, Steve. I hope you're well. NWO, how are you? Haven't seen you for a little while. I hope all is well with you. John, good evening. Watching Bond on ITV, but Twitter is on fire over the Spudsby game, Chelsea. What's happened? I don't know. Not that I care. Neither of my team. Lawrence, I hope you're well. Players can't always save Moyes' bad tactics. Totally agree. Mikey, Moyes reverted back to type, as I and others predicted. Moyes is incompetent. Well, I've got to give him, a little bit of. At the weekend, with two players out on suspension, Moyes kind of didn't have much choice but to bring back maybe Antonio. I'd argue maybe. Look at the formation against Arsenal, where you had Kudus, Bowen in the middle, and Ben Rama out wide. Leave that, and then maybe bring Fornals or Cornet or someone else sitting behind Bowen. Change it. You didn't have to bring Antonio back, but we knew it was going to happen, didn't we? Flamer, good evening to you. Forest beat Villa. They sure did. What a result for them as well. 2-0 too. Burnley are at home and desperate for points. So Moyes got a chance. Well, it's going to be really interesting, isn't it? Adam, good evening to you. Thank you for coming over and saying hello at the game at Brentford on Saturday. Really nice to meet you in person, mate. Much appreciated. NWO 2-1 still said we would lose. Underestimate the Oppo trying to cruise. Matt Ryan, good evening. Rainey, good evening to you. Danny Ings, 125. Well, he's not on 125 a week. It will be 125 with bonuses. Not getting a lot of bonuses because he's not scoring, but it would be. I think he's on about 100, but the other 25 is plus bonuses. No goals in the last 21 games, which is why he's not getting his 125 grand. Is Enner Valencia available again rather than him than Ings? But all jokes aside, Mumbama should get some minutes. But Looms looks on his way out in the summer. Well, I want to know, I have asked about that. I was told about that last week, and I did some minutes on that too. But I want to get a bit of an update when I can about that as well. And as soon as I do, I'll bring that to you. Black Country, I hope you're well. Please, Mr. Moyes, it's G Watt. What else have we got? Who else have we got here? Sean, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Moyes out. Paul Evans, good evening to you. Time up, he has to go. Aaron, I take Steve over Moyes. E. Davis, good evening to you. It's totally rational to want a new manager. It's totally rational, not irrational whatsoever. Totally agree. Ryan, good evening, mate. I hope you're doing well. Please, Moyes out. There's a lot of Moyes out. Would anyone dare say Moyes in? Not just as a joke, but in a serious way. I'm interested, because I think there are a lot. There is a big cry out for Moyes out. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dismissing that at all. But I think there's an awful lot of fans that are Moyes indifferent at the moment. Now I think Sean Whetstone did a survey on Twitter, and apparently 60-70%, something like that, went Moyes out. It's interesting because he said that he did a survey earlier on the season when we were doing well, and it was something like 60-70% saying Moyes in. Are we a bit, anyway, Obsidian, good evening to you. Hey, Uefa, come get him, he's all yours. Well, I'm going to go into that in a minute because all this stuff about him going upstairs and going to Uefa. Steve, I hope you're well. Thanks for joining, mate. Much appreciated. Hammerette. January seems like a fair amount of time for Scarfy to find us who we need to step into Moyes' shoes. If he's not already found one already, also in last week's show, I did suggest we may already have the next manager amongst us. And that is, of course, Heitinga. Heitinga's been brought in. He did an interim stint at Ajax last season and did exceptionally well, all things considered. Might be a bit of a gamble, but it could be, excuse me, it could be that if the manager that we want is not available until next summer, it could be that Heitinga might come in and take over the reins from January. He was, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but Heitinga was also brought in under the Tim Steiden banner. So who's to say that Heitinga wouldn't come in, work well with Tim Steiden, and get who we need in the January transfer window and completely change the way we play? He played at Ajax with a 4-3-3 formation, and it worked extremely well. It could be a gamble because he doesn't have a lot of Premier League experience in terms of managing. I know he played for Everton under Moyes, etc. But it's an interesting option. James, good evening to you. I think we would need to freshen up with a new manager. I've had enough now. Moyes gets outclassed tactically far too often. That's what I based an awful lot of my video on at the weekend, saying about how Frank just seemed to, out-tactic him, if that is a correct terminology. John, good evening to you. We've been discussing the Moyes out for 2.5 seasons. It's boring as the Lingard saga, where we are going to sack a manager after every 6 game. Good point. It's a really good point. And I'm not going with that 6 games and out thing. But certainly, I think the January transfer window is important. Why is it more important than all the other January transfer windows under Moyes? Because this is Moyes' last. This is Moyes with having only 6 months left of his contract. So we got to, not only have we got to get right what's the players we need, but if Moyes is blocking the players that Steiden's recommending, Moyes won't be here at the end of this season. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge. Steiden saying, this is the sort of player I got for you up front, player I got for you, I don't know, at centre back, right back, left back, whatever. And if Moyes keeps going, no, Moyes ain't going to be here at the end of this season to work with a new squad. So that's why he has to work well and closely with Steiden in the January window. Otherwise, he will be gone. Mikey, people saying we ain't going to get relegated. I don't think we will. Only 8 points above relegation places, more than enough. And our goal difference is dropping quicker than Aaron Brady's thingies. Let's scroll down. English Yardie, I hope you're well. It's got so bad as a fan base that we've become desensitized and we're okay with Moyes, which is sickening, to be honest. Moyes is pathetic. He's the worst manager in the Premier League. No more excuses. Here's the thing. He's our most successful Premier League manager, period. I know people don't want to hear that, but statistically, he is our most successful Premier League manager. Is he the worst manager in the league at the moment? I don't think so. And speaking of the devil, good evening, Mr. Whetstone. I hope you're well. You must have finished your podcast earlier than usual. Let's scroll down and try and catch up. Rani, Ten Hag had a 74% win at Ajax. Don't look like it means a whole lot right now. So don't know how relevant heighting the records is. I get that. I understand that. I'm just saying that potentially, if we can't find the manager, if the manager isn't available, that Steiden would want to get in midway through the season, Heitinga may come in as a stopgap until the summer when that manager is available for us. Let's scroll down. Epic. Fabianski concedes a savable goal every single game, and yet people are slagging off Areola, which I find really surprising. Usual. If Moyes stays still, you can bet your bottom dollar Kudish will be gone before you know it. That is another concern. I've got to be honest. It is a concern. The players will be looking at what's happening and go, I don't want to be part of this. Now, as I said again last week before last, I can't remember, when Jared Bowen signed his new contract, he talked about a long-term project. He talked about the excitement of a long-term project. And I said then, well, this isn't a David Moyes project. Otherwise, Jared Bowen wouldn't be talking about it so enthusiastically, because David Moyes is only here for the rest of this season at best, if not only until January. So it's got to be a Tim Steiden project that Bowen was talking about. And I agree with you. You know, Kudish would have probably been sold that project. You know, maybe we can try and keep Paquetá longer, Alvarez, etc., etc. Otherwise, you're absolutely right. If Moyes stays any longer than this season, then those sorts of players could go. Mandy, first and second striker have a combined age of almost 65. It's almost as old as me. Paul, we will see a better team without Moyes ball. Rani, Mikey, I'll take Chelsea winning, to be honest. Who's winning? What's the score? Someone give me the score. Jerry, good evening to you. We haven't given Kehrer much of a chance in my books. He started to improve, then never got played. And this is the problem. When I talk about the squad, and I know I've only mentioned one or two players like Cornet and so on and so forth. When I talk about the squad, I'm talking about the extended squad. You know, play them. It's not about dropping players and picking players. It's about, evolving the squad. It's using a squad rotation system, and don't just play them only in the cup competitions. Give them an opportunity. If someone is not doing the business in the Premier League, then bring Kehrer in as right back. Bring Mavropanos in as centre back. I know Mavropanos played at the weekend. Own goal, awful. He mistimed that header and it went straight in rather than over the bar. But the only reason why he got his game time is because we had an injury. If Zuma wasn't injured, he wouldn't have been picked. Jason, wouldn't it be nice to get a new manager? Let's scroll down. What have we got? Rani. I'm happy enough that Mike still talking about this, but I just want to know the score. Rupert, good evening to you. I hope you're well. I keep this short. Moyes has got to go now. Get another manager to save our season. Don't leave it until we're out of Europe. It could happen, and falling back towards the relegation zone. I'm never that pessimistic, but good to see you on here, Rupert. I hope you're well. And good to see you at the weekend as well. Ballon, thoughts on JWP? I think we can see why no one else wanted him. A poor version of Noble with the occasional set piece. To be quite honest with you, I think JWP is another player that's been asked to play a slightly different game in the last few games. He's playing deeper. When he started the season, he was playing it sort of in between the holding midfielder and the attacking midfielders, and sort of like that gap in the middle and getting into positions, getting the balls in, etc., etc. Now he's being asked to play a lot deeper. He's not going to be as effective, is he? So I actually think JWP is okay. I think, 30 odd million pounds that we spent on him is reasonable. He's already made a massive return on that transfer value from the goals he's provided and scored early in the season. Going through a blip, but you could argue the whole team's going through a blip at the moment. Mikey, Moyes obsessed with puts every player on the left-hand side. True. Best even... good evening, Lee. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Good evening to you, Dan. I hope you're well. Best red light district in Serbia still. I've got no idea, I'm afraid. Why would I know that? I bet there's probably only one red light district anyway. Mark, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to go. But anyway, Mark, Moyes has to trust Tim Steiden to bring in the right players for him. The three so far look good. The January transfer window will tell us if Moyes is prepared to do this. And this is the nub. This is where we're at. If Moyes is saying no, no, no to all the recommendations that Steiden's making, then it's very likely Moyes won't be here to see the end of the January transfer window. Martin, I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Mandy, Moyes has destroyed everyone he has played left wing. Do you know what? In a way, I've got to agree with you, because he's tried so many players out on the left and nothing's worked. What about getting a player that knows how to play out on the left? We got Cornet. He plays out on the left. He's played as a left wing back. He may not be the best player in the world, but at least he's more suited to that role. And see what happens. You never know. He might provide a goal or score a goal. Let's scroll down. Let's get a few people. Hello, Paul. I hope you're well. Am I late? I am late. You're not late. Don't worry, mate. I've just ranted for the last 45 minutes about David Moyes. So you haven't really missed much. Neil, Danny Ings couldn't score in. Good evening, Ballon. I hope you're well. Can Dodsey stop spending money on entertainment parlours and pay off Moyes instead? Good evening, Ryan. I hope you're well. Let's scroll down and try and catch up with you for you. What am I on? Only 10 minutes behind, so I'm going to scroll through quite a few. Daniel, good evening to you. All for Moyes, but best for summer change. Mid-season change don't have long-term success. It's about next 5 years, not next 5 months. That's a good point. Absolutely good point, and I totally agree. But it's the January transfer window is actually quite crucial because it determines how we go forward next season, which Moyes won't be part of. There's no way I can see West Ham United. Well, no way. They're not going to give him a new contract. So either he's going to survive and go at the end of the season, or if he doesn't play ball with Tim Steiden in the January or before up to the January transfer window, he might not even manage to get that far. Let's scroll down. By the way, if you're new to the channel, please do hit the subscribe button, hit the like button and the bell notification. It does help. Helps even more. I had a video taken down by Twitter, by YouTube earlier today. It got 50,000 views and they took it down. So I've made a complaint. So do subscribe. It'll help me get that 5 pence back that I earned on that 50,000 video. Ballon, do you think Whetstone will get lucky again with the ballot to? There's no way Sean Whetstone will go to Serbia. I guarantee it. Even if he got lucky, he'd give the ticket away. And he has got to go. He has had enough chances. He is clueless. Hamrit, Moyes in until January if he stays the same dross. Moyes until summer or he sorts this dross out for me. Worried what could end up with a panic manager. I don't think we'll have a panic manager. Look, Tim Steiden has already been told to draw up a list of managers that could potentially replace David Moyes. He would have been asked to do that anyway because he'll be looking for a new manager come the summer when Moyes' contract finally expires. But it could be that will be brought forward to January if need be. So I don't think it will be panic, especially under Tim Steiner. I'm putting a lot of 92% out on Claret and Booze last night. Well, no surprise. It is a Moyes out channel, so I'll be very, very shocked if it was anything less than that. Good evening to you, Astrophos. I hope you're well. Clive, fickle fans are plenty still. I'm still Allardyce in. Sean, our fan base are flip-flop. I did a poll in September where 71% they wanted to offer him a renewal contract. There you go. And then Dan's reply to you, will Sean be doing Palace away again this year after causing the kickoff delay last season? I'll let Sean answer that. Brian, does it bother anyone else that pundits like Talk Sport and others think West Ham supporters are nuts for even thinking of wanting Moyes out? Goldstein actually said today, we are lucky to have him. Well, of course they'll see that because they don't see, well, I guess they do. They're pundits. They do, they talk about West Ham and every other Premier League team. So they must know what's going on week in, week out. I think they're too far removed from it, Brian. So it kind of doesn't surprise me. They will see it as West Ham United have won a trophy. How can you want anything different, etc., etc.? They're too far removed from it. Steve, good evening to you, mate. Johnny H. did caretaker manager at Ajax first stint, good record. He did. I'm not saying that it'll work at West Ham, but it's an option. It's an option until the end of the season. Sean again. My September poll said 71% wanted a new contract for Moyes. My November poll, and then you run out of money to carry on. My November poll of 4,209 says 68% want Moyes out now. Flip-flop fans. We are flip-flop fans, and we're all fans that think we know best, don't we? Bill, watching the Brentford match live, didn't see Moyes speaking to Heitinga, only McKinley. Interesting point. I didn't notice from where we were, to be honest, but that's an interesting point that you make. Dan, Sully put a poll out for us. Sean will make sure you get lucky. You got a fan there, Sean. Michael, watching Tottenham attack with only 9 men. Moyes can't even attack with 11. Oh, are they down to 9 men? Wow. Hamret, are you guys not worried that should Moyes leave tomorrow, we may be managed worse than we are currently? That is a really good point. That's a really, really good point. It's quite possible that we could have a manager that it could be a lot worse than what it is. Mandy, Chelsea 2-1 up, Spurs 10 men. Thank you for that. Good evening to you, Victor. I hope you're well. Since we appointed Heitinga and Robson to the coaching staff, our form has gone backwards. That's interesting. I don't know when they both came in. I'm not a fan of Mark Robson. If you've seen me talk about the under-21s, I wasn't very complimentary about Robson and the way he managed the under-21s. They're flying at the moment, the under-21s, since Robson moved on to bigger and better things. So there you go. Oh, now they're up down to 9 men. Okay, thank you. And they're still doing well at 2-1. Good evening, Lord Patrick. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining, mate. Much appreciated. Rani, 5 to 10 games in, they will probably be sounding off what they don't like about the new guys, etc. It's true. 5 to 10 players in, and it will happen. You know it will happen. That we're getting a new manager, and all of a sudden, we're going to have problems with him if he doesn't start winning. Sean, if Moyes was sacked, what would all the YouTube channels do for content? Well, as you know, Sean, I've been Moyes neutral for as long as I possibly can, but it's getting harder and harder to be so. Michael, good evening to you good morning to you from Australia. The treatment of Mumbama is the final straw for me. The Academy of Football sign at the London Stadium needs to be pulled down as it doesn't exist. It does exist, and I'm going to talk about the Academy of Football in a moment, but I get what you're saying. And I know a lot of fans are really disappointed that Moyes doesn't use young players, etc. But as I keep repeating, and I do sound like a broken record, as I keep repeating, you find a lot of managers in the Premier League don't use youngsters in their lineup, to be quite honest with you. But for some reason, it's stuck with Moyes, hasn't it? Over all the other managers, it's kind of stuck as if he's the only manager that doesn't use academy players. But I get what you're saying. I totally understand. And I've got to be also honest, Michael. If Mumbama does leave, because he's not getting game time or the contract he wants or some negotiation doesn't work out on the contract, I think that will be hugely disappointing. Whereas a lot of the young players that we've had over the last couple of years who have left, everyone's, scandalous to allow them to go. Not a lot of them I've cared about, because I don't think many of them will really sort of get to Premier League level. Mumbama, I think, is one of the few that would possibly do so. Let's scroll down. Adam, Moyes has been the same for the last 18 months. If you can't change his tactics in games, he can't take us any further. It's the same old, same old. And I get it. I understand that. Right. Now, let's go into what about David Moyes and this rumour that is going to go either upstairs or to UEFA. Look, he's got 25 years of management experience. You can't deny he's an experienced manager. Can't deny that he's not necessarily everybody's cup of tea, but you can't deny he's got years of experience. And from my understanding, if I remember correctly, he has worked for, I think, either FIFA or UEFA during the World Cup, as an advisor and stuff like that. So he's outside of West Ham United fan base and maybe the Everton fan base and maybe the Man United fan base and maybe the Sunderland fan base. Apart from that, he actually has a very good reputation in the footballing world. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if UEFA came knocking on the door to offer him some kind of role as technical advisor, because I think the experience stands him in good stead. It wouldn't surprise me. Is that story true? I don't know. I've not been told that it is, and it has come out of the blue somewhat. So I'm going to hold fire on that one because I don't really... Sean hasn't told me whether that's true. I don't think he's managed to establish whether it is or not. And I'm not so sure it's got too much credence to it. It came out today, I think in the Daily Mail or whatever. And if you fucking believe what the Daily Mail says, then you are in trouble. But, I'm not so sure. And then there's a story about he could be moved upstairs. And as I was reminded, We've got a technical director. We've got a sports director. We've got the directors on the board and all that sort of stuff. What would exactly what directorship exactly would David Moyes take at West Ham United? That ain't gonna happen. It's an interesting one, but I don't think there's any substance to that story either. I'm not so sure David Moyes, with his ego, would actually think he's ready to hang up his managerial boots. I think if he does leave West Ham, well, not if, when he does leave West Ham United, whether it be before the January window or whether it be next summer, I think David Moyes will believe that he's good enough to continue in management and he will find a job somewhere else. He could go back to Everton maybe or some other club. But I don't think he's quite ready yet to turn around and say, I've had enough. I'm going to leave football management. I could be wrong. Never say never. But I think I find it a little bit incredulous to think that he's going to go and be some kind of director for West Ham United upstairs. You know, if there's a role, it would be like I guess, at best, an ambassadorial role, something like that, something like Alex Ferguson has done for Man United. But I just can't. He's not been long enough at West Ham to do that. He's not, 4 years at the club and half a season before that. It's not long enough for West Ham United to offer David Moyes a role upstairs. When you've got the likes of Billy Bonds and Trevor Brooking and all that, players, ex-players that have been there for years, lifelong West Ham or years at West Ham, my mind says there's just no way that David Moyes is going to be offered a role as part of the West Ham infrastructure beyond manager. So I don't believe that's true. The UEFA, it's an interesting one, and I can see it. I can understand it because he has done some sort of advisory role for them. Like I said, I can't remember. It may have been Europe Championships or the World Cup. I think it was the World Cup that he's done some sort of technical advisory role in the past. So I can see that. There is a possibility. But again, like I said, I don't know whether David Moyes is quite ready to hang up his managerial boots yet. Right. I'm going to take a breather because I need a drink, and I'll just see you in a few seconds on the other side. Right, let's talk about a quick West Ham news roundup, shall we? First of all, I know you love this bit, but it's only going to take 10 seconds, so just bear with it. West Ham United women's team were back in action after the international women's break recently, but they were narrowly beaten 3-2 by Bristol City in the Barclays Women's Super League on Sunday afternoon. Things started well for West Ham at Chigwell Construction Stadium when a penalty for handball was converted by Viviane Assayi on the 27th minute. But unfortunately, that wasn't enough to get West Ham the win because almost immediately Bristol went level, and then the game was turned on its head on 37 minutes when they went 2-1 up, grabbing the second goal of the day. However, that wouldn't be the last action of the first half because Riko Ueki, the Japanese international, got her third goal in West Ham colours. Maybe we should play her in the men's team. Finding a space and drilling a strike into the bottom corner. But unfortunately, Bristol City edged it on the 55th minute and went 3-2 up and won the game. Right, there you go. See, I told you it wasn't painful. It takes about 30 seconds. What about the under-21s? Well, they are going from strength to strength. Absolutely incredible run of form since Mark Robson became David Moyes' number 2. They played Liverpool away at Liverpool Training Centre on Saturday at 2 p.m. and they smashed them 4-0 away from home. An impressive win, an impressive list of wins over the last 8 games they've had. Their third straight victory and third clean sheet in a row saw the Young Hammers leave Merseyside with 3 points as a stunning attacking performance unfolded against Liverpool. A clinical counter-attack gave West Ham the opening goal with Callum Marshall finishing on the 13th minute. And then Marshall added his second of the afternoon on the hour mark, taking his season tally to 17 goals in all competitions. Absolutely superb display by Callum Marshall. Was one of the young players who was in the under-18s last season, where they won the FA Youth Cup and they won the league as well. So he stepped up superbly, alongside quite a few other players, but he is standout at the moment. Right, so that was 2-0. And then Patrick Kelly dinked an on-rushing Liverpool keeper for Gideon Kadua, the captain of the under-21s, another one who teams last season to score their third. And then Jacob Knightbridge. It's really interesting because I was almost kind of mocking poor old Jacob Knightbridge last season because I said he's gone out on loan to Harrow Borough. Why would you send them any player out on loan to a non-league club? Well, Jacob Knightbridge is now fast becoming the under-21s goalkeeper, and he made a string of superb saves. And then George Earthy, the number 10 of the day, made it 4 with a neat swivel, 17 minutes from time. Absolutely superb, stunning performances by the under-21s, and they march on. Unbeaten now in all competitions in 11 games. They moved to second place in the Premier League 2 with their 5th league win of the season. Now, the league won't start again in December. I don't want to tell you who's first in Premier League 2 because it makes me want to vomit. But there you go. You go and search for it yourself. However, the under-21s, now, they're not back in league action until December. However, they are back in action tomorrow evening when they're back in the EFL Trophy. This is when they play first teams. It's not the Cheltenham under-21s. This is the Cheltenham first team. And they're up against Cheltenham Town on Tuesday night in the EFL Trophy. The under-21s have already booked their place in the last 32 of this competition with a 1-0 win over Newport County a week ago, and they will strive to make it 3 wins from 3 matches in this competition. A win will secure top spot in their group, and a win will also get them to an 11-game, as I've said, unbeaten run this season. If you fancy supporting the young lads, West Ham have been given a small allocation of tickets in the Colin Farmer stand at Cheltenham. Entry is via Gate 5, located on the corner of Wyman's Road and Wadden Road. Just go to the official West Ham United website and you can get yourself a ticket if you live near or anywhere around that area. Absolutely superb for them. I think they're just, this is the next flock of youngsters that you are all going to say David Moyes is going to avoid, but I'm going to tell you David Moyes won't be here next season. So this lot stand a fantastic chance, maybe 1 or 2, maybe going out on the right loan, etc., and breaking into the first team. What about players on loan? Well, our players on loan have been doing pretty well of late. Flynn Downs was pivotal in the Southampton's win over Millwall in the EFL Championship at the weekend. Fresh off man of the match performance in their last league outing, Downs played the full 90 minutes at the Den and helped the South Coast team to earn a 5th win in 7 matches. It was quite an uneventful game. The only goal of the match came in the 3rd minute of added time. Ryan Fraser tucked in near post. It was a Southampton deserved win. They had 73% possession and registered 8 shots to Millwall's 1. Downs has now made 11 championship appearances for Southampton this season, with the side now sitting 4th in the championship on 27 points. Now, there's an awful lot of talk about Flynn Downs, maybe coming back. I think I read just before I went online, I read a story that apparently he's ready to come back in January. Well, no, he's not. Because in the agreement that brought James Ward-Prowse to West Ham United, Downs is on loan for the whole season. And my understanding is we don't have any claim to be able to cut short that loan spell. So he's there for the rest of this season. Having said that, I've said it a few times before, and I did get shot down by 1 or 2 viewers by saying it. I think Downs shouldn't have gone out on loan. Look, Downs wanted game time. David Moyes, I guess, didn't fancy him. But when you've got Connor Coventry in the side, who's no way you're going to get any game time under David Moyes. And you've got to think to yourself, Flynn Downes is a better player, he more all-rounded player than Connor Coventry. I would have liked him to have stayed at West Ham because I think he would have been given a bit of game time. Every time Edson Alvarez is out of the team because of injury or suspension or whatever it may be, we kind of look a little bit light in that pivotal holding midfield role. And I think Downes would have got a little bit of game time in the cup competitions that we're in, etc. So I think it's disappointing that we allowed him to go out on loan, but I'm really, really pleased that he's doing so well. Another player that's doing exceptionally well on loan is Freddie Potts, who is on loan at Wycombe Wanderers. And he was in the FA Cup at the weekend in their 2-1 win over Bradford. So well done to him. He's another player that is having an exceptionally good loan spell away from West Ham. And again, I hope, another very decent central midfielder. Hopefully this gives him the sort of the prominence to come back and try and stake a claim in the first team. That's the whole idea of going out on loan, isn't it? And finally, another player on loan, Nathan Trott, dear old Nathan Trott, on loan at Vejle BK in the Danish league. Unfortunately, after he got the man of the match performance last week, he was on the losing team again this week when they lost 1-0 to FC Nordsjælland. Now, like Downes, goalkeeper Trott put in a man of the match performance last week, and the 24-year-old made a string of superb saves and starts for the Danish team. But unfortunately, they're sitting very much at the bottom of the Danish Super League and look likely to be going straight back down after being promoted last season. Right, let's take a few of your notes because now, after this, I'm going to go straight into the brief look at the Olympiacos game because we've got a very, very crucial week of football coming up, and Olympiacos is not going to be an easy one. So let's scroll down. Michael, I'm not a flip-flop fan. I never wanted Numbnut Moyes in the first place. He has messed up everywhere he's been. Well, has he messed up at West Ham? He has won us a trophy, and I know you don't want to hear that, but I guess he has. Epic. Moyes was a UEFA technical observer. I thought so. So yeah, I can see why perhaps there's interest that if that is true, there is interest from UEFA. UEFA can have him on a free. Hammer it. What would it cost? 3 million to end Moyes' contract halfway through the season. Sully squeaks when he walks, so I just can't say, oh, come on. You know better than that. You know better than, suggesting that Sullivan doesn't spend money. I've always said Sullivan spends money, he just hasn't spent it well. But under Tim Steidten, I think that's changing. But yes, it will be around about £3 million if we let him go halfway through the season. Mikey, getting one over on the Gooners and Rice return, drool all day long. But again, this season, like last, cup games papering over, the Premier League cracks. Well, if we keep losing in the Premier League, I would agree with you. At this moment in time, yeah, it's not great. I think, but we, starting Saturday against Forest, who had a very good result at the weekend themselves, it's got to be the road back to trying to get back into the swing of winning in the lead. 3-1 to Chelsea. I don't know who I dislike more, Chelsea or Spurs. I'm not so sure. Bill, director of Dross. John, Moyes, director of what? Director of the academy. Let's scroll down. NWO, let him carry his trophy around the stadium. Dan, is there space on the board for Moyes after Sully added a mattress during COVID so she could attend games? An actress on... Oh, yeah, probably not. A good one. Good evening, old man. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Let's scroll down. Let's talk to people that I've not spoken to yet. Montana, Spuds, imagine losing to Chelsea at home. Yeah, well, yeah. Awful. I don't care about Spurs' results or about Chelsea's results, to be quite honest with you. I really only care about our results. I'm not much concerned. I'm concerned when we play them, of course, but, Tottenham flat to deceive. They won't win anything, nor will Arsenal, nor will Chelsea, So there you go. I think we'll win a trophy this season. There you go. Shows how mad I am. Michael, the only reason I would move him upstairs is to repair a leaking roof or make the tea. The idiot is so incompetent that in other sphere, he would have been sacked months ago. Lee, I enjoy your show. Thank you, Lee. I really appreciate that, mate. Much appreciated for you joining. Ralph, am I right in thinking that the under-21s play these games away only? Yes, I think you are right. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but I think you are absolutely correct. Every one of their EFL games has been away from home. Good spot. You are correct. Ian, I hear Moyes might be heading upstairs. Let's hope it's 4-1 now. David, good evening to you. 4-1 Chelsea. Oh, dear. Dear, poor old Spurs. Good evening, James. I hope you're well. Good evening, Garino. I hope you're well. Thank you both for joining. Oh, man, many people have said this. Kehrer in for Alvarez. Many people have alluded to this. I don't know. You're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't ever remember reading about Kehrer playing in a defensive midfield role. I could be wrong, but a lot of people have suggested that. And might be, I don't know. Might be worth a shot. Who knows? Pigads, good evening to you. Downs was great in all those ECL games. He was. I think he's maybe I'm in a minority, but I think he's a really decent player, to be quite honest with you. English Yardie. Flynn, good player. He'd definitely been Moyes' lack of man management with players is sickening, to be fair. It's a surprise that he was allowed to go out on loan. Robert, 9 VAR calls in that Spurs-Chelsea game. Just get rid of VAR. How frustrating is VAR? How long did it take for VAR to work out whether Bowen's goal was, should be awarded or not? Offside, handball, dragging someone's hair, kicking someone up the arse. I mean, goodness me, just get rid of VAR. It's ruined the game. Let's scroll down. Funny enough, Moyes' favourite singer is Luther. Good evening, Billy Bob. I hope you're well. Thank you very much. Please do gently caress the like button. Please do smash the subscription button and hit that bell notification as well to let you know when my next show is on. Rani, Forest want to play the way we do, so it's going to be another game we won't know what to do with the ball probably. And here we are. If that's what Forest are going to do, where they're going to sit back and allow us to play, then we need creative players that are going to find a way of breaking through them. And when those creative players are not doing the business, put on other players. Put on the likes of Cornet or Fornals in the middle, not on the left. And have Antonio on the bench and bring him on for the last 20 minutes so he can so he can just ram their defense. That's the way it should be done. Steve, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Let this Scotch bloke off Moyes out. Good evening, Iron Ore. I hope you're well. It will still cost us 3 million if he stays. Let Johnny H caretake. That shouldn't cost much. That's good point. It's going to cost us either way, isn't it, David? I think they get slightly less if they're paid off, but you're right. It's not going to be that far off. David M. If David Moyes wasn't the manager, West Ham manager, he would have gone to another Premier League club. I'm not sure he would. Oh, if David Moyes wasn't the Premier League manager, would he have gone to another Premier League club? I'm not sure. I would wager that some club would have been desperate enough to say, we would like you to come and manage us. We had standing jokes over managers like Allardyce, always coming back like a yo-yo. There's always a team that needs a manager like Moyes, like Allardyce, etc., to come back. Melissa, good evening to you. I don't find their results funny. We're in bigger problems. I don't care about their results, but we're not in bigger problems. If we were languishing at the bottom of the league, I would agree with you. But I know I'm being maybe a little bit too overzealous, but I just don't think we're going to be in a relegation dogfight. But it might turn out to be a bit of a bore season halfway down the table. Hammer Molder, afternoon still, nice and sunny in LA. Oh, mate, is it not raining yet? Oh, I hope you're well. Thanks for joining, mate. I hope you're well. Steve, Anton on West Ham Network said today, Moyes deserves benefit of the doubt. I think he is on shrooms. Well, I've said that many times, but I am close. I think it's interesting. I think what's going to happen in November and December is going to be very, very interesting from the club to see whether Moyes does stay on in the second half of the season. Willex, good evening to you. 12 minutes extra time at the end of the first half. 12 minutes at the end of... Is only half time there? I'm losing track. Are you talking about today's game or are you talking about our game at the weekend? Hammer it. I'm so close to Moyes out. It's ridiculous. Needs to show us a bit of positive light at the weekend. Lord Patrick, our next manager is rubbish. Get rid. You heard it here first. You're getting in there before it's right. Let's go into the next part of the show. Right, I just spilt water all over me, but never mind that. Olympiacos is coming up. As I said earlier on, we've got a very, very interesting week of football coming up because with 2 games to go and then the next effing international break is looming, and we never do well after an international break. Oh boy. So we've got 2 big games. We've got not only the game against Olympiacos coming up, but we've also got to host Nottingham Forest on Sunday as well. I'm not going to talk about Forest because I can do a show about that later in the week. But in case I don't get enough time to do a show about Olympiacos, I'm going to talk a little bit about them today. Now, at the weekend, Olympiacos suffered their 3rd defeat of the season, which was their 2nd defeat in their domestic league. PAOK Salonika were the visitors at the Kariskaisis Stadium, and they walked away 4-2 winners, 2-4 winners on the day. With their first defeat, Olympiacos, which was against arch rivals Panathinaikos, it puts them 4 points behind their arch rivals, so they're 2nd in the league at the moment. But every time Olympiacos gets beaten in any game, they come back quite strong. So they were beaten for the first time in the season by Freiburg, where they beat them in the Europa League back in September. And they came back in their domestic league and they smashed AE Kifisias 4-0 at home. Then they were beaten by Panathinaikos. They put in a great performance, and then that resulted in them putting a great performance against us, where they beat us 2-1 at their ground. So after this 3rd defeat, especially given that it's affected them in their league status and taken them 4 points away from Panathinaikos, they're going to be hurting. They're going to come to the London Stadium and they're going to be hurting somewhat. And, I think they're going to be looking to bounce back strong. I think they're going to be looking at the game that they played against us at their ground, and they're going to be thinking to themselves, do you know what? I don't think we've got an awful lot to worry about. I think that's going to be on their minds. And they've got everything to play for. It's a really crunch game for West Ham. And it also is a crunch game for the likes of Olympiacos as well. Because up until the game against us, if they'd have lost against West Ham, that would have been it for them. They might have finished 3rd in the group stages, and then maybe a playoff game to get into the Europa Conference League. But that win has buoyed them. It's brought them right back up again. Now, by the way, tickets are still available. They've gone on general sale, but they are still available for the game on Thursday. And I think it's going to be quite I've got to be honest. When I went to their stadium in Athens a few weeks ago, their atmosphere there was nothing short of pretty much superb. Their fans were singing from start to finish. They did create a very, very hostile environment. I'd love to think that we can do the same at the London Stadium. But unfortunately, I doubt we'll be able to match that. Having said that, we have had some great European nights at the London Stadium. So I think we can build up enough noise and enough of an atmosphere to get behind the team. So like I say, tickets are still available. They're on general sale. So if you're tinkering with the idea of going and you're near, you can get there, do it. Come and watch the game, because I tell you, there's nothing much like a really good atmosphere under the lights at the stadium. And people that say, the stadium's got no atmosphere, there's been some atmosphere there. And I've got a feeling that this coming Thursday is going to be one of those games where it's going to be quite buzzy in the stadium, and we should be well up for it. Look, it's a crunch game, because if you look at the standings, the league standings at the moment, the UEFA League standings, Freiburg are just ahead of us. because they've scored more goals, although they've conceded more. So they're just ahead of us. We've got the same number of points, etc. Olympiacos, like I said, if we'd beaten them the other week, they would have been out of it. But now with 4 points, they're going to come. They're going to come to the London Stadium and they're going to fancy their chances. If they can get a point off us, then that could be a good result. If we only walk away with a draw and Freiburg beat Topola, which I'm expecting them to do so, then that puts a little bit of daylight between West Ham and Freiburg. We'll end up finishing second. And if we finish second, that means we go into the playoffs an extra 2 games in February. We don't want that. We'd much rather win this group outright and have it done and dusted so that we can avoid any playoffs because the playoffs will be against Champions League teams that drop down. We don't want that. So it's tough. There's going to be a lot of pressure on the team, a lot of pressure on Moyes and the players. But we got ourselves in this position. I think Moyes did a massive disservice to Olympiacos a few weeks ago by putting out the team that he did. I think he underestimated them vastly. So it's a crucial win for West Ham. It's going to be really, really important. We cannot really, ideally, we cannot afford a draw, and we certainly cannot afford a defeat. Now, what sort of team is David Moyes going to put out? Well, I would argue that he's got to put out something similar to the sort of team that he put out against Arsenal. You've got to nullify some of their better players. You've got to make sure that they're more occupied about us than we are about them. For example, Roddy Nye, who was their right back, who put the ball in for the own goal that Ogbonna scored. You've got to nullify him. You've also got to nullify their captain and their top player, Konstantinos Fortounis, who scored their goal against us as well. When he literally ran straight through our midfielder's score. You've got to nullify that sort of player as well. But at the same time, not only nullify them, but you've also got to give them something to worry about. And I think we've got a decent enough team to go out there and give them some concerns. Now, I said something similar to Arsenal. For me, look, at the moment, Zuma is injured. He's the only player that I understand is injured. But for me, we know Fabianski's going to start. I don't mind that. And I think Kera, Mavropanos, probably a good, and Emerson are likely to be at the back. Our pivotal player, a player we really do miss when he's not on the pitch, Alvarez, will be back. So he should be the pivot in the middle. And then I'll just go strong. Just go strong and put Kudus, James Ward-Prowse, Paquetá, and also Ben Rama, and put Bowen up front. Now, I've got a weird feeling that David Moyes is going to put Souček and Antonio in that lineup. Which I wouldn't agree to. I want that lineup. I think, if you're not going to play that lineup, then what I was beginning of the show, do something different. Put Cornet in. Start him on the left if you don't want Ben Rama to play, as an example. If you're going to play for hours, put him in the middle. Start him over, I don't know, James Ward-Prowse, but put him in the middle rather than out on the left. But my gut tells me that David Moyes is going to play Souček as well as Antonio. And then if he does, then the likely players that are going to drop out of that first 11 are probably going to be Ben Rama and James Ward-Prowse. I don't agree with it, but if Moyes does play Antonio and Souček in the lineup on Thursday, then the players that are likely to drop out for him are going to be James Ward-Prowse and Ben Rama. Now, I know Benny plays hot and cold at times, but I think, ironically, I don't think he should have been taken off against Brentford at the weekend. He had a golden opportunity in the first half when all he was going to do was tap the effing ball in to put us 3-1 up before half-time, when Antonio decided that he wanted to score. And Ben Rama was absolutely livid at Antonio for getting in the way. I don't know if there was a call or whatever, but you can see Ben Rama really frustrated that all he had to do, he had to tap it in. Antonio came lumbering in with his size 84s and got in the way. But I've got a feeling that Antonio and Souček are likely to start. And this is where we go straight back to the start of the show when we talk about when players are not doing it. Antonio has not been doing it. Ings has not been doing it. When players have not been doing it, don't keep playing them over and over and over again. Do something different. Like I said at the beginning of the show, this is what may win back a bit of the fan base for David Moyes if he starts showing that he's capable of doing something different rather than doing the same old that just doesn't have any end product. So I'm hoping for me, forget about the game on Sunday against Nottingham Forest for now, because then you can put Antonio in and you can put, I don't know, Souček in and stuff like that, and Soufal back and so on, and Areola in goal and so on. But for me, you've got to win. We've got to beat Olympiacos on Thursday. There's no draws or whatever about this, walking away with a point, etc. We've got to win. We've got to win it in order, like I said, to be able to give us, that standing again in that table. We've got to win. We've just got to win, because when Freiburg come, they're going to be, if they're top of the table still, when Freiburg visit us, they're going to be up for it as well. And there's no saying that we'll beat Bakatopola at their ground. We should do, but there's no saying it will happen. So for me, David Moyes has really got to go out with a strong team. And for me, this is a team. This is a fluid team. This is a team that got something about them. A team that can actually be creative. That can. There's movement there. Ben Rama comes to life sometimes in games like this. Kudus, well, he's proven that he's a top player, and there's absolutely no way on earth that he should be dropped for any game now, especially with that wonder goal at the weekend. And Alvarez, obviously, he's got to start in order to keep it strong in the middle of the park. That, for me, is probably the best lineup for Europe. And you may argue, I'm sure you're going to have your own first 11. But that, for me, should be a winning team on Thursday. We've got to go for it. There's no two ways about it. And I'm gonna, being the optimist that I am, half glass always full. We're not going to keep a clean sheet because we can't do that for Toffee. But I'm going to go through a 3-1 win. Right. Let's see what you've got to say. Let's scroll down and see what your comments are. Everyone's saying good evening, even at this late stage. You missed the whole show. Never mind. English Yardie. Still, no way a progressive club in the Premier League would employ Moyes. I wouldn't want Moyes to manage over 40 team. Well, yeah, I get you. Progressive club, but some clubs are not progressive. Some clubs play to survive, and I could probably see one or two clubs, if he wasn't managing West Ham, coming in for him. Andy Armitt, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Perhaps the international break coming up might help. Never does. Never does. Couldn't be much worse than the October one. Don't bet on it, mate. We never have a good game after an international break. Worries me. So you know what will happen? We'll go and beat Olympiacos. We'll go and beat Nottingham Forest, and everyone will be cock-a-hoop. Yeah. We won 2 games. International break. We come back and fuck me, we've just lost. I don't know who it is after the international break. Is it Burnley? I can't remember what the next game is. Bill, Marinakis will have a big bar if Olympiacos Nottingham Forest beat us. A big bar. A big bar, Bill. If Olympiacos Nottingham Forest beat us. Yeah, he's involved in both, isn't he? Forgot about that. Hammerit. Weird that at the start of the season, I really thought we had some depth. Now it looks shite when someone is out. When I looked at the squad, I was the same. When I looked at the squad, I said to myself, it's good. It's a good squad. And then well, actually, it's not that great. Got a lot of aging players. We've got a lot of players that are just not performing. Got a lot of players that are sort of hanging on. And then when you start stripping them out, you think, well, I'm down to 10. For me, I'm down to 10 players that I could say I'd put my hat on will perform week in, week out. But the problem is we don't want just 10 players, because that's when they burn out, just like what happened a few seasons ago. We want 15, 16 players that can put in decent performances. I think we do have another half a dozen or so decent players that maybe under a different manager or maybe under different tactics could give us a lot more than they're currently offering. Garino, Play the starting 11 minus Antonio and Souček. We beat them by passing through them. No hoofing it. I agree. Because that is what's going to happen. If it's not working, then by all means, bring Souček on, bring Antonio on, and start hoofing it and get it in the box. The irony is that's what Brentford did to us at the weekend. They couldn't play through us. We were kind of all right. We were shaky at times. Brentford had a number of chances in the first half that they didn't convert. But in the second half, they started going, right, well, we can't play through you. We're going to start hoofing it. And the two hoofs gave them the second and third goal. Let's scroll down. Let's get Stel 100 likes. I don't know how many I've got, but thank you very much. Hammer it. Seen some of the best games in the last few seasons, but so much of it has also been boring and stressful. It sure has. I don't disagree. Thousands of tickets unsold, apparently. There are, but I think my understanding is, because it's gone on general, I think my understanding is that we're not necessarily going to get a full house, but I think we're going to get a pretty decent turnout on Thursday night. I think there'll be a last-minute rush. Mikey, don't think we will qualify for Europe next season the way things are going. Probably end up finishing about 14th, I predict. This is the concern, Mikey. If we do finish mid-table mediocrity and don't win a trophy to get back into Europe, then it will be disappointing, extremely disappointing. And like I said, this is what the board are thinking about. The board are going to be thinking about, under Tim Steidten, they're going to say, Tim, what can we do to improve this squad? What do we need in January? Tim is going to give a list of players and say, we should consider these players. If Moyes goes, no. The board are going to go, thank you, goodbye, Mr. Moyes. Let's carry on with our business. Bring an interim in, and so that Tim Steidten can bring in the players that will give us a good second half of the season. Hammer it. We will beat them on Thursday. I'm sure of it. We played crap last time round. Try being there and watching us play crap. Rowley, good evening to you. We've had a few good European nights at the London Stadium. We have. It can become electric in there. And let's hope that happens on Thursday night. Daniel, the table, not correct. We're in front on head-to-head. Well, I got that from the UEFA site. I was actually surprised when I looked it up earlier today, but I actually picked that up directly from the UEFA site. So I am surprised, yeah, because we did beat them. So you're absolutely right. Are they basing it on more goals scored? But then they've conceded more. So, yeah, good point. But that came tonight off that site. Let's scroll down. Rowley again. Atmosphere a couple of times last season was bouncing. Absolutely. I remember the Seville game at the stadium. Absolutely. One of the best nights ever at that stadium. Mandy. Alvarez and Paquetá will be fresh. Yeah. Fucking hope they will be. Lord Patrick. Semi-final against Eintracht in 76 was the best ever game at the Bowling. Don't disagree. I'm old enough to remember, as is you. Andrew, Olympiacos will be tough. Need to play our strongest side. Then on Sunday, we take on confident Forest, who have just had a great win against Villa. Could easily be 4 defeats on the trot in the league. That would be disastrous. Steve, I was at the 4-1 Liverpool game in 89, and Ince had a great game scoring twice. Cracking atmosphere. Gets us up, doesn't it? These sorts of games is what you live for. It's what you come to watch West Ham United for. When we're under that little bit of pressure, under the lights, you want things to go right. And when it goes right, boy, oh boy, is it fantastic. Bill, agree with that lineup. Thank you. Tell me what you think, actually. Do you think that lineup is decent or not? Michael, our best chance of winning a trophy is to finish third in the group and then drop down to the Conference League. Debbie and Mark, good evening to you. Is it me or still freezing a lot and out of sync? I hope not. Am I? Do tell me. I know it went a little bit fuzzy at the beginning of the show. I hope it's not now. Let's scroll down. What else have we got? Garino. You must have been no more than a few meters away from me. What game was that, Garino? Whatever game it was. I was with a friend, and after Ince scored, I didn't see him again till the next day. Lord Patrick. Benny was screaming for that ball. Mate, look, my mate was behind the goal in the home section and said it was clear as day. I was up, so I didn't hear the scream, but boy, oh boy, did you see Benny go nuts. What the fuck, was Antonio doing? 3-1, the game would have been over. they might have got another goal back, but I just don't think they would have come back 3-1. But we're 2-1 at half time, and with Thomas Frank, giving them a good pep talk, they came out all guns blazing in the second half. 3-1, the game would have been over. Let's scroll down. English Yardie. Antonio and Souček shouldn't be starters. Better suited coming off the bench. Moyes likely to resort back to the same. If he does, he'll have himself to blame if he does get the push before the January transfer window. Hammerette, greedy because he's desperate for a goal. How about stay on your feet and something may happen in the future? About Antonio. Good evening, Andrew. Moyes is just set in his ways and just can't help himself if you're continually picking Souček and Antonio. This is what worries me. Really does. Neil. Can't see Moyes dropping Ward-Prowse. He is his new defensive midfielder. Expect Paquetá to be shoved out wide. Sadly, no matter who is picked, what formation, the tactics are set in stone. I don't mind Ward-Prowse so long as he's played, like I said earlier on, just behind the attacking midfielder and just in front of the holding midfielder. Alvarez can do the job himself. He doesn't need any help as holding midfielder. He does that job so well. No need to have Ward-Prowse there. Excuse me, burping. Let's scroll down. Melissa, I'm desperate for a win. I'm restless. Thursday. We'll get it. I hope so. Foxes, we need at least 8 players out and 8 in. I don't disagree with that. I've got about half a dozen, but I don't, you're not far off, mate, to be quite honest with you. Rani. Oh, the good old days paying at turnstiles and standing. Used to love all that. Come to the Bobby Moore Lower. We still stand there. And we still go through turnstiles. But you know what's really fucking annoying is when fucking people are standing there at turnstiles going, ain't working. Turn it around the right way, mate, and it might work. Ain't fucking difficult. Anyway, Eric, we're now 6 out of 7 London clubs in the Premier League. We'll get back up, he says unconvincingly. Andrew, we've got the best crop of under-21s in the league. Just smashed Liverpool 4-0. You must have come late to the show because I did that earlier on, mate. They are superb. But we have a manager who's no foresight or interest in bringing them into the first team, continues picking Ings. Brian, with Paquetá, Bowen, Kudos, and Alvarez, add a top-notch striker, and we really have a scary team. I totally agree. And this is what the focus is going to be in the January transfer window. I think we need a couple of, we can't get 8 players like Fox has suggested, but certainly we need a couple of players to strengthen some parts of the squad. Striker has got to be. And this is going to be where, the crunch comes with David Moyes and Tim Steiden and David Sullivan. Because if Steiden says, here's a player we can get on loan, or here's a striker we can get on loan, or we can buy him, and Moyes goes, no, I don't think Sullivan's going to put up with it. Ralph, next week we could be 15th. We could be, but we won't be. Hi from California. Hi, James. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining, mate. Much appreciated. Will, talk of cutting Premier Leagues to 18 teams. What do you think, Stel? They've been talking about that for years, haven't they? They want to try and I actually don't think it will happen, to be quite honest with you. Football TV money alone, they make an awful lot of money out of TV with 20 teams, so I can't see them losing. That would mean you lose what, I don't know how many games in a season, to be quite honest with you. I can't see it happening. I really can't. Bill, yes, gone wobbly on the interweb a few times tonight. I do apologize for that. I think I'm going to... We moved. I think I might have said that. We moved home. We've got as decent an effing Wi-Fi system as we possibly could, but it sure ain't decent enough. So we're going to have to get a booster. I'll have to do that over the next week or so. Hammerette. I never noticed just how slow Benny is. I knew he wasn't pacey, but it's so noticeable this season. He's carrying a bit of timber. I think we all have said that he looks like he's carrying a little bit of timber. But I tell you what, he was in the right place at the right time for that tap-in until Mr. Bigfoot got in the way. Garino, we have turned to crap since Moyes moved Ward-Prowse deeper. Agreed. And Paquetá to the left. Agreed. To accommodate Souček. Agreed. Paquetá must be central. Agreed. JWP further forward. Absolutely agree on every single point there. Mark, there is a pattern of poor second half performances. Either it is the players losing energy and belief, or it's the manager's tactics. I think, I did when I did the Sunday show to talk about the game, I talked about Thomas Frank and how he changed the game with his tactics. He told the team, Plan A isn't working. We're going to go for plan B. And like I said, they couldn't play through us in the first half. They damn well tried, but they couldn't play through us. So in the second half, they were mixing the tactics up. They were trying to play through us, and when they couldn't, they were getting it out wide and getting the ball into the box. We got giants in our team. Souček, Mavropanos, Agurd, they're all like massive. The problem has been is that we seem to be marking zonally rather than marking players. I've never been an advocate of zonal marking. I'm old-fashioned. You mark the player rather than the zone. And if we'd been marking players, I don't think they would have probably got half a chance, let alone scoring 2 goals out of them. English Yardy. Still, have you noticed that the team Steiden has built, Leverkusen is in first place? I have indeed. In the Bundesliga, so in Steiden, I trust. Let him cook and have another chef use his ingredient. Totally agree. And everyone's talking about get Xabi Alonso in. Xabi Alonso is not coming to West Ham United when he manages to get Bayer Leverkusen in the Champions League. Xabi, I know you're my mate, and we kind of finished mid-table, and we got knocked out of all the European competitions. But come on, mate, come and manage us. No thanks. I'm playing Bayer Leverkusen in the Champions League next season. No competition. So everyone going Xabi. I'd love Xabi Alonso, but no chance when they actually qualify for the Champions League next season. Hammerette, I don't sit at the ground, can barely see anything standing, and I'm near the front. I'll say nothing about your height. Andrew, unpopular opinion, but Ward-Prowse looks very ordinary to me. Seems a few good moments for overall. Well, I disagree. I think Garino said it earlier. When Ward-Prowse was playing further forward, he was much more effective. Ward-Prowse is the sort of player. I remember when we were talking about buying him, and I did like a review on the player, and I said one of the things that I never noticed, but one of the things he does very well is he comes late into the 18-yard box, and in order, he buys that space. So everyone's sort of defending around the 18-yard box, etc. Ward-Prowse sort of has that momentum and comes in a little bit late. So when the ball comes out to him, it's almost like he's taken a set piece kick, and gets the ball into the box. He's not been able to do that lately because he's fucking well defending in our third of the field. Noel Roberts, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Spuds lost 4-1 at home with a great atmosphere and a standing ovation at the end. Why? Because they have a manager that inspires. See, we've done that. We've lost massive games or by massive results, and we've applauded the team because they put effort in, and that's all you want. Rani, JWP dropped 15 yards, asked to play a different role. Absolutely. Andrew, JWP looks lightweight. Mojo, Benny comfort eating still. For all we know. Hi, Daniela. Good evening to you. Bit late, but very welcome as usual. If I can get your comment up. Hi, everyone. Just got out of my cricket meeting. How is everyone? We're all very well indeed, and thank you for joining. Crafty Dave. Moyes out for me. What a surprise, mate. Ian, lose the next 2 games. What happens? Lose the next 2 games. What happens? We could be playing for a playoff place in the Europa League or for a place in Europa Conference League, and it won't be pleasant in the Premier League because we'll drop down, I think someone said, to 15th. Going wobbly again. I'm really sorry, and I don't know why, because I'm looking at the Wi-Fi link and it's saying it's absolutely fine. So my apologies. But having said that, I've come to the end of the show. An hour and 33 minutes. I feel like I've cheated you out of half an hour, but I don't have much more to say. I'll do a recap. I'll tell you what, for those that came late, why don't I do a recap? That'll fill half an hour. So I started with, can Moyes turn it around again? Yes, I think he can if he starts making a few simple changes. Bring on subs in order to change a game rather than the usual bring on subs just because the hour mark has gone. Start using a few other players instead of the same old, same old. Don't bring Danny Ings on thinking that things are going to change because they're not likely to. But certainly, try Cornet, try Mumbama, try something different. You never know what might happen. Then I looked at the squad and I said, in the summer there's a few players that should have moved on. I absolutely am a massive fan of Ogbonna, but I knew he should have gone. Ben Johnson hasn't been a decent player for the last couple of seasons. Creswell should have just been allowed to go on a free to Wolves. Fabianski, some people will say he's still decent. Antonio should have been gone a couple of seasons ago. Danny Ings has not given us anything, and I would have kept Downs rather than loaning him out and would have got rid of Connor Coventry. Fornals, if you're going to do something different, don't keep bringing Pablo Fornals on the left-hand side. If you're going to bring him on as a sub, bring him on as a midfielder, which is what central midfielder, which is what he's learnt his trade in. And those changes, those few changes, could actually win back a bit of support for David Moyes. And surely, when we keep looking at Danny Ings coming on and thinking, well, what's he just done? Surely it must be worthwhile giving this young lad a go. I talked about the women's team. They lost. I talked about the under-21s who have been absolutely smashing it since Steve Potts took over. Absolutely superb. And Callum Marshall scored his 17th goal of the season. And if you're anywhere near Cheltenham tomorrow night and you're thinking about watching a game, go and get a ticket and watch them play against Cheltenham in the EFL Trophy. Some loan news. Flynn Downs has been smashing it for the Saints. Freddie Potts has been doing just the same for Wycombe Wanderers. And then our game on Thursday against Olympiacos, they're going to come like a wounded beast. They got beaten at home 4-2 against PAOK at the weekend. It's a must-win game for us because, if we lose that game or if we draw, it's not going to be enough. It's going to put us in a playoff situation. So we need to win. And we got to keep players like Fortunis very quiet. And my team for Thursday, as I said, I'd go for Fabianski in goal, Kera, Mavropanos, Agerd, and Emerson at the back. In midfield, I'd go for Kudus, Ward-Prowse, Alvarez, Paquetá, Ben Rama, and up front, Bowen. But David Moyes is going to shoe in Thomas Souček and Mikel Antonio, probably for James Ward-Prowse and Ben Rama, which won't be right. Now, that's it. Done. What else have I got? Forest, crucial 3 games. Absolutely. Crucial 3 points. Sorry, absolutely. Picans. I'm not Moyes out, but I'm a big fan of a comeback story. Do you think he can do it? Brian, you owe us 30 minutes. God damn it. I've tried to use 10 minutes of that already. Mark, deja vu, the Forest game, massive for Moyes last season too. It was indeed. Hammerettes, get behind them on Thursday. Confidence taken to Sunday. Reset after the break. And we know he's not coming to West Ham. We know Xabi Alonso is likely to go to Real Madrid. Neil, I don't mind Ward-Prowse, just don't want him playing deep. Totally agree. If Ings comes on and we are losing, we are waving the white flag. Totally agree. Mbama needs a chance. And that is it. Thank you very much, everyone. And as Hammerett says, do hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell notification to let you know when I'm next on. And thank you all very much. See you all soon. Have a great week. Come on, West Ham. Big week of football. We're going to start smashing it against Olympiacos on Thursday and then against Nottingham Forest on Sunday. Have a great week, and I'll see you all soon.